Bienvenidos, señoras y señores. Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. I'm back. Anyways, we have breaking news. We're going to get to it, but let's get the business out of the way, okay? Bienvenidos, señoras y señores, to another episode of the Bleed Lows podcast. We're in vivo in la carne asada. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NBA, NHL playoffs. All the latest stats, news, and scores are available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds, just about every sport out here. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. Cubole Sangrones, joining us en vivo today are our regulars, Canelo, Cody Snavely, Carlos Alfaro is here, and Babyface is in the background. Yeah, so what a way to start the live, guys. So let's just get right into it right now. Let me say hi to the people that we have on here. So William Andrews, congratulations. You were the first one on the live, so very happy to see you guys. Dennis Gonzalez, Denny, all the regulars are here. Roy Estrada, who else? Hey, the ghost of Al Davis, Philip Lopez is here. All right, guys. Let's see here. Yeah. A lot of familiar faces here, so let's go ahead. I love this. I love this, Dennis Gonzalez. Hola, Juan, a.k.a. Alfred Molina from the Perez family. You know, I laugh, Dennis, because I had a friend who always used to say that I look like Alfred Molina from the Perez family. And points to you, Dennis, for knowing what that movie is. All right, so breaking news, everybody, and I think we should give credit to TMZ first, right, Canelo? Because you saw it on TMZ Sports.
Yeah, I mean, I think you brought up before we started the stream, you know, how often has TMZ gotten a really big story wrong? And it was only a matter of time before we all said, all right, let's wait for more and more, you know, publications start posting their articles of it. And a lot of them were, you know, the New York Times posted their article, but a lot of people were referencing the TMZ report first. So give credit to, you know, the TMZ people.
Absolutely. So for those of you who are living under a rock and don't know, the breaking news that we're talking about is that Ippei Mizuhara, Shohei Ohtani's former interpreter, is currently, it's being reported, is negotiating with the federal authorities for a guilty plea into the investigation. And I think we should be clear on this, guys. This was an investigation of Ippei, not necessarily of Shohei. I know it always gets reported that the investigation into Shohei, but Ippei is the guy who's getting investigated. So before we get into the nitty gritty of this report, and this is coming in, we're going with the information that the New York Times is presenting. I do want to point something out to one of our loyal listeners, viewers. He's been, from the beginning, he goes back. Today is the birthday of the ghost of Al Davis, Mr. Raider himself, Philip Lopez. So everybody in the chat, wish that Salvi a Sapo Verde from us. Happy birthday, Philip Lopez, you April babies. Before we get into the details, Carlos, what your initial thoughts here on the fact that if this is true, if this breaking news is coming out here, it looks like Shohei was telling the truth, and hopefully Major League Baseball won't take forever to come out with their findings. Your reaction, sir?
My reaction. I knew Ohtani was always innocent. I knew that this was going to eventually just disappear. And from the beginning, I said, it's not even going to affect him. You know, if you look at how he's doing now, he's on a hot streak. So it didn't affect him. I'm glad this is coming to an end. I'm glad his interpreter man up and he's going to take responsibility just like he should. And so I'm glad that this, like I said, I'm glad this is coming to an end.
Babyface, I need receipts. Was Carlos always, is he just lying to me, or was he always saying that Shohei was innocent?
Yeah, I think he was on the free Shohei from the start. I'll go back and look at the tape though, but yeah, I think he was on it.
Canelo, your reaction, sir?
I'm kind of in the same camp as Carlos. Honestly, to be honest, I called BS on all the, you know, conspiracy theories that were floating around. I got a good laugh out of it because I think some people were genuinely trying to be funny about it. But the people that at the end of the day, thought Shohei Ohtani was a gambler and that would throw away his entire career and his image, which I still think his image is a little bit damaged. There's no coming back from this. For Dodger fans, it doesn't matter. For hardcore Ohtani fans, it doesn't matter. But for some casual baseball fans, this is going to throw, a curveball into his career, and it'll just follow him for the rest of his career that way. So he'll have to live with that. And it just sucks that, his agency kind of dropped the ball. His friend and his translator pretty much dropped the ball for him, almost ruining his career. But I'm glad that the truth finally can come out because, I'm a history buff. I love U.S. history, and I love this country. And, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. And we live in a society now where it's guilty and you're guilty until you're proven innocent. So I'm glad that more and more facts are coming out, but I still think it's going to be a storyline that the Dodgers are going to get jabs at. Ohtani's going to get jabs at, but it's good for the Dodgers and for us as fans to kind of have clarity in this. And I imagine MLB is going to, release, their findings in their own separate investigation relatively soon. Because I imagine if the federal government is wrapping up theirs or as close to theirs, MLB is as well. Because in both of these articles, TMZ and the New York Times article and all the articles that have come after that, they said that Ohtani is pretty much cleared of any involvement in the gambling and Ippei's situation at all.
Hey, Cody, real quick. So this is what kind of, with all the stuff that came out, okay, Shohei's gambling and there's other fans, right? They're like, oh, but he's a gambler. Like, there was never anything of like into baseball gambling, right? Nothing like that. So if Shohei gambled, what's the big deal? He's not cheating. He's not cheating. He's not taking steroids. If somebody gambles, what's the big deal? So if you gamble, I know a lot of people gamble. Are you like a degenerate and like you're the scum of the earth or what? Like, I mean, I don't get it. Like, it's gambling, right?
Canelo, you wanna set him straight on what he's saying right now?
I mean, I just think as long as you're not betting on baseball, even if it's an illegal bookie, he's technically not a cheater. And I'll still live by that statement, even though it looks a little wrong, and you kind of have to take what that person's saying at face value. But in the rules of Major League Baseball, it's happened before. The Marlins pitcher in 2015, I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head. He used an illegal bookie, and all he got was an undisclosed fine when they said, hey, he didn't bet on baseball. So even if, Ohtani was gambling, he's well within his rights to gamble on any other sport as long as it's not baseball. But I still just don't believe he would gamble at all.
And I understand that. Like, to me, it's like he's not cheating in the game. So to me, it's like I don't get why people would say anything about it because he's not cheating for anything in the game. So
correct me if I'm wrong here, people. If you look at the CBA says you can't bet on any sport, whether it's baseball or any outside sports. And what Roy Estrada just brought up is a very poignant part. Gambling is illegal in California. This investigation is related to what happened in California. So if it was proven that Shohei was gambling, was the one making these bets, it's illegal in California to do that. And therefore, he has committed a crime. But all the detectives on the chat right now, check me if I'm wrong, but the CBA says you can't bet on any sports. And the punishment can be a fine. That's up to the commissioner, depending on what it is. But the punishment can be a fine. So it was something serious here. So I want to give credit to the guys at the New York Times that are reporting this story, and that is Tim Arango. I believe Michael S. Schmidt is the one taking the lead on this, and then Tim Arango was assistant. Here is what is being reported in this story, aside from the negotiations that Ippei is doing with Ippei Mizuhara for a guilty plea. Okay. They are reporting in their story that Ippei may have stolen more than the 4.5 million that was reported earlier. And then this is the most interesting part of the story from the New York Times. There may be evidence that shows that Ippei was able to change the settings on Ohtani's bank account. So then Ohtani's bank account would not receive alerts or confirmation about transactions. So when we first were reporting the story, the question was always, how is it that he could not know that this money was missing from his account? Well, if Ippei was doing this, changing the settings, that would explain why Ohtani wouldn't know, or anybody. I mean, I don't know. You still, when he's filing taxes, you would think his accountant would still be able to say, hey, man, where's this money going to? But in terms of the wire transfers, the 2 wire transfers that had Ohtani's name on them, it could be that Ippei was the one that was putting Ohtani's name on them. So I think if this turns out to be true, those are the explanations. But going back to what you were saying, Roger, the problem is if he was gambling, do we have confirmation on the CBA? Can anybody?
So I looked it up. NBC Los Angeles, when they posted a whole thing, I can't find anything with CBA directly. It just says all in uniform personnel, as well as team, league employees, all that, are allowed to gamble on other sports as long as they're not baseball, and as long as the bookmaker's illegal. So you're not doing it in a state that's illegal. That's when you get down the rabbit hole of saying, all right, if you get caught gambling and it's not in baseball and it was an illegal bookmaker, then it's the fine or a punishment for the man or for the commissioner's discretion.
And I get all that. I get all that stuff, right? You got to follow the rules, whatever. But I mean, for fans to come on like and just, oh, he's a gambler. Like, okay, if he's a gambler, like I said, it has nothing to do with what he's doing on the field.
He bet on horses.
That's what I mean, nothing to do with what he's doing on the field. So you can't say anything about what he's doing on the field. So
there we go. And the other thing that was coming out of that New York Times story is that the federal authorities have interviewed Ohtani already in terms of his relationship with Ippei. Carlos, you were going to say something before I rudely interrupted you.
No. It's I just this whole topic on the gambling in California, it's a little it's kind of frustrating because everything we watch, right? Football, baseball, podcast.
This podcast?
No, not just this podcast. All podcasts, everything sponsored by some sort of gambling site. And we know we're in California, and if you read the fine print, it says not in California and other states. I get it, but it's so in your face. So I do parlays with my brother lives in Arizona, a state that you can gamble. So I every so often, I want to take my chances. I feel good about Ohtani and bets getting a hit here and there. And so I place a bet. Hey, I tell him, hey, add me to your bet. I mean, it's really unfortunate how the state of California, I know we had it on the ballot not too long ago, and it was knocked down by the voters of the state of California that you couldn't. I think it was DraftKings were going to have online betting, and it was knocked down. I don't get this state. Like, it just tells you, oh, this is what you can do. This is what you can't do. And I we're grown men. We should be able to say, you know what, we're going to bet. Now, if there was a rule like you were mentioning, Juan, in the CBA, and it said you can't bet on any on baseball, but any other sport is fine. Man, you know what? I'm to the extent like Pete Rose. Maybe a lot of people can disagree. Put him in the Hall of Fame. He, as long as he didn't bet against his team, I don't even really care. That's completely different than the Chicago White Sox, the Joe Jackson incident. They lost on purpose because they weren't getting paid. But I don't know. It's like a fine line. You got a lot of people on one side of the fence, which is everybody who doesn't like the Dodgers, and then everybody who's a Dodger fan saying, you know what, let this go. And like I said, hopefully this will be the end of it, and we can move forward from this.
I think. Go ahead.
I'll say when you go down, down the 10, you go stop at Morongo or Yamava or whatever, and you go and you place all your money on red or whatever. Isn't that gambling? What's the difference?
Well, they because I believe those are indigenous. They have gambling licenses, so that's legal in that area because they're on indigenous lands.
The more you know.
do. That's right. I mean, but you're right to your point. What you're saying, Roger, it is gambling, but it is not illegal, and I think that's part of what is tracking. It is what initiated this investigation. It's the reason why Yasiel Puig was involved in it. Also, is just it was illegal in terms of if that bookie was taking straight up bets. Now the reports, nothing was confirmed. The reports were that he was betting on football. And so I stand corrected on the CBA. If the CBA is saying that you can go ahead and bet on other sports, then I think you bring up the point that, okay, well then what he did. The only issue is if he committed a crime. Again, the punishment may have been just a fine, but look, this is what's being reported right now. So as Denny Cortez says here, legal only on reservations with gaming licenses, and they share with non-gaming tribes. Gavin, again, Indian reservations are allowed to have casinos and operate them on their land. Indian reservations in California legal to gamble. Juan was being politically correct. Roy, I don't know if we can call them Indian. My understanding was they are indigenous. So I defer to you if you know that Indian is the appropriate nomenclature. For all I know, that team in Cleveland changed their name because of that. So anyways, that's the breaking news on Shohei. And it seems like everybody in the chat is over this story and they want to move on. So any last words, guys, before we move on and talk about the Dodgers and their play in Minnesota?
No, let's get going. Let's talk some actual Dodgers baseball.
All right, let's do it. So the Dodgers take 2 out of 3 in Minnesota. They end up splitting the road trip. They go 3-3. Canelo, your thoughts on what the Dodgers did in Minnesota?
I thought the pitching looked good in Minnesota compared to when they were in Chicago. I thought the bats wasted a little bit of opportunity. It seemed like we put a lot of runners on. Felt like we could have just scored a lot more runs throughout that series. And especially today, it seemed like they had their opportunities to score. But as the game went on and on, it really took a perfect relay from, I put it in my post-game article today, from the Dodgers' arch nemesis in Carlos Correa. Bang, bang play to get Shohei Ohtani. And a lot of people were questioning that play. Why was he going from first to home? I think he made it around there in like 11 seconds, which is like crazy fast to get from first all the way over there. And it had to be perfect, a perfect bounce off the wall, a perfect feed to Correa, and then a perfect catch from the catcher to get the tag on. And I think the only argument you can make on that play is that maybe if Ohtani slid head first, he probably could have gotten his hand in there. But I don't know. I still would have sent him 2, especially in that situation. But going 3-3 on the first road trip, especially going up north in these cold states in April where it's still winter up there, basically, that's a lot. And the Dodgers, we were talking before we aired with Carlos, just they had to battle the elements in Wrigley. And then they go to Minnesota to kind of rebound off of that. And now they're finally coming back to Los Angeles. So I'll take a 3-3 road trip, getting series win to end it.
Yeah, I saw Dino take a lot of strays for sending him, and I had no problem with him sending him because at that point, the Dodgers had only mustered 2 runs. And you were down, you're losing. So there is no guarantee that you're going to have another chance. So, like you said, Canelo, it took a perfect throw to get him out. Carlos, what did you see in Minnesota?
So I pulled up the stats for this series, and so Smith ended up batting 400 on the series. Smith is on fire. I think he's leading the league in average with 412. Ohtani is picking it up. He had I think a stretch where he had 3 extra base hits and 3 at bats. I think a triple, double. So he hit 385. He went 5 of 13. We also had Teoscar Hernandez has been a pleasant surprise. Always been a big fan of his. He's batting 364. Outman batted 364 this series. Now, if we go back to the previous series, Chicago, even St. Louis at home, he was hitting liners. He was hitting liners right at people. And so you knew he was just needed a break. He just needed to get that ball in the right spot. So he's out of that slump. He's not part of that bottom 3 where they're struggling pretty bad. Freeman was he batted 333. Betts was a little under 300 at 273. My concern would be someone like Taylor. It's not the fact that he went over. in his 6 at bats, he struck out 5 times. So there's something wrong. Like mechanically, I mean, he's not seeing the ball right. I mean, these are things that, we all played little league, we all played, high school ball, and, so there's something definitely wrong with him. So I don't know. I don't know if he's going to, I don't know how long you keep him in the team and say, hey, let's just carry this guy if he's going to be an automatic out. The other thing that caught my attention was the amount of strikeouts the Dodgers had as a team. They had 37 strikeouts, which equated to like 36% of the at bats.
And they lead the league in strikeouts by a lot.
And you know who's number 1, right? Max Muncy. Max Muncy leads the league in strikeouts. So those were concerning. I mean, I like to see that, the top 4 right now was Smith, Ohtani, Hernandez, and Outman. That's great news because Betts will pick it up. Freeman's, I mean, he's so consistent. So those were the good. Those were the bad on the batting. And pitching wise, I did look at the pitching, and I think we have a new Lance Lynn on the team. His name is Vesia. He gave up 2 home runs this series, right? And one today was a determining factor of the game. But overall, the bullpen was pretty good. Brazier, Hudson, Phillips, they did well. Juan's favorite pitcher, Paxton, he did okay. He didn't do too bad. He 6 innings, 3 hits. I mean, he's not a strikeout pitcher anymore, unfortunately. He had 4 Ks. But the standout of the series was Glasnow with 14 strikeouts in 7 innings pitched, and I think he did it with less than 90 pitches. And I read somewhere that hasn't been achieved in like 20 years, something like that. I forgot where I read it, but so that was a good thing. Those were the positive takeaways from the pitching, and the only I think negative was Vesia and the kid they just had picked up, Brogdon, I think his name is. And
Cody's favorite pitcher.
Yeah, top 5 there, Cody, and he gave up 2 home runs I think on his first 2 batters he faces. So, I know the Dodgers are this carousel on like middle relief, but Grove looked good, 2 in the third. He had 4 strikeouts, and Kelly looked good too. So those were the positives.
Just to circle back on what you had said about Muncy and the strikeouts, I believe it was in one of the post games, Muncy had mentioned the fact that there's something going on mechanically with him at the plate that he's not comfortable with, and he feels like it's contributing to his number of strikeouts. So he is aware of the strikeout problem. I don't want to go completely Prince of Darkness on you guys and just focus on the bad, considering the Dodgers did win the series. And the way we're talking about it, you would think that they lost the series or they got swept. Look, Tyler Glasnow, guys, I mean, that guy looked 14 strikeouts. Now, yeah, I know somebody's going to come at me and go, Juan, the Minnesota Twins offense was ranked 30th in average and 29th in runs. He did need to do that. So at this point, give your flowers to Tyler Glasnow. And I know, Babyface, you are already on record. He is the ace of the staff, right? Are you're fully committed to that in April that Tyler Glasnow is the ace?
Yeah, I think he's what everybody kind of expected, right? Tyler Glasnow, ace type pitcher, and he's coming out in his first couple starts, and he's showing that. I think he is that guy that's stepping up. You don't have no longer some of the aces from the past, right? Like Kershaw when Julio was there, guys like that. So I think Tyler is the guy that's stepping up, and he's the ace for now. And then, we'll see once Walker comes back if he could kind of regain his form. But I think Tyler is the guy. I mean, you guys saw the new name that's going around, right, for Tyler?
No, what is it?
Tyler Glasnow, or Tyler Glass Wow.
Got it.
Let's see what you did there.
Glass Wow. That's impressive. You guys were mentioning James Outman, fellow member of the Stalloner's Club. It was interesting because they did it today. I don't know if anybody caught it today on the broadcast, but it looked like he had changed his swing a little bit, and he, I guess, tried shortening it up. I know they were comparing him to Canelo's favorite player of all time, Chase Utley, that Chase Utley had a more shorter, straight to the ball approach. And it seems like that is what Outman was doing, and he got results out of it in Minnesota. So What I'm hearing from you, the good, it seems it's Glasnow. I mean, the fact that, he kept his pitch count that low and struck out 14 and gave them innings. I think that was very encouraging. Paxton, Carlos, the president of the James Paxton fan club, Carlos, I think was very encouraged by what they were doing there. But yeah, I think everybody's concern is what's going on with the bottom third of the lineup. So I know we're all jumping on Chris Taylor because Chris Taylor is hitting 037, but there are some other candidates in the bottom of that lineup. Outman, like I said, fellow Stalloner Club member, is showing signs of hopefully breaking out of it, and he's turning around. But another guy, guys, that we can't ignore here is Gavin Lux. And Hershiser said this on the broadcast, and that is I think he's having problems picking up the ball. Even his takes, Hershiser said, look uncomfortable. Canelo, what are you seeing with Gavin Lux?
I mean, it wasn't today's game, but it was yesterday where I think he took a 4-pitch at bat and then he took 3 strikes right down the pipe. And I tweeted out and I said, what was Lux looking for? Like, that was probably like one of the worst at bats I've seen all night. And I think oddly enough, the one thing that we were all concerned about with Lux was like, oh, he can't play defense. Like, he's the only infielder without an error this year. Like, he doesn't have an error on the season. Everybody else in the infield has at least one or more. And he looks really good at second base. He's made some really good plays. You know, there was line shots right up the middle. He's looked athletic out there. Seems like he's more comfortable there. But the reason why the Dodgers are saying that they need him there is for his bat. And you know, he only has a 443 OPS. That's not going to cut it. He's batting 179 on the season. It's with all the guys on the bottom of the order, they can't all be like sub 500 OPS guys. Like some of them have to step it up. I'm not saying they all have to be 800 or 900, but they have to show at least some ability to get on base to set up the guys at the top of the lineup that are, you know, one dotting in the OPS department. That's the only way the Dodgers are going to, you know, score runs. And right now, Lux isn't cutting it. Right now, Taylor isn't cutting it. Kike Hernandez isn't cutting it. And James Outman before this series wasn't cutting it either. But like Carlos mentioned, his advanced metrics that I brought up about 2 weeks ago looked very promising. It looked like he was just lining out into unlucky outs. And it seems like now the ball's baseball's about being lucky. So there you go. Now he's hitting his stride. But I am a little bit concerned about Lux. And I'm the biggest Lux truther on this page and this channel, and I've been chanting for it. And I do think he will eventually come into his own, but the Dodgers aren't going to wait around for it. The Dodgers aren't going to wait for Chris Taylor to get it right. They're not going to wait for Gavin Lux to get it right. If by the All-Star break this is still happening, they're going to make moves that put them in the best position to win now. So I'm interested to see, you know, how the next month or two, especially as the summer months get closer, how everybody adjusts.
It's interesting that you say that because you're giving them until the All-Star break. That's still a long ways away. So a lot can happen. Look, you guys all mentioned, I know everyone is ready to send Vesia to Antarctica. But there's a couple of things that I want to address with you guys. So Bobby Miller only went 4 innings today, and this is coming off of his start in Chicago. For me, this is Carlos, this is the second game in a row that I've seen him have struggles with his off-speed stuff. Is it just, how cold was it? Does anybody know how cold it was in Minnesota? So I don't know if that was affecting his grip.
Not too bad. It was like 60
with his off-speed stuff. But look, we made a big deal about the fact that Bobby Miller has 4 pitches, and that's what makes him a stud. But if he is struggling with his off-speed pitches, his fastball, to me, at least today, it looked like a lot of that stuff was right down the middle. And I don't know any pitcher that's going to be able to have success like that if you're leaving stuff right over the plate.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know how, honestly, I didn't even pay attention to his breaking ball, but it was his fastball. It was just went down the middle. He's got to hit the corners. He's got to hit the top of the box. He's got to hit the bottom. You know, even if he doesn't get the calls, you know, because this whole, and I don't want to go to the umpire thing, but this whole getaway series, both series, Chicago and Minnesota, the umpires were pretty bad. But I mean, in the first game in Chicago, he struck out the side in the first inning. Looked amazing. What the hell happened in the second inning? I don't even know. It was kind of like bizarre. It's like almost like if they knew what he was doing and what the guy said, oh, well, don't swing at these pitches because we're going to strike out just like we did. I don't know, but it was bizarre how he just looked amazing the first inning in Chicago. Second inning, he gets hit rock pretty hard. Almost got out of it with one more strike, but didn't happen. Today, I mean, 4 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs. It's the walks. He had 3 walks in 4 innings, so he's averaging almost a walk an inning. That's concerning. That means he's not hitting his spot. So he's not. The balls are just. I mean, it's control. It comes down to control. You see it a lot too in younger pitchers. A lot of younger pitchers. I mean, not so much their sophomore season, but their rookie year, they have issues with control, and they're not hitting their spots. Maybe they're scared because they don't want to get hit hard. But he's not a rookie. He's in his sophomore season. I mean, three walks is a lot. I mean, he had 4 strikeouts, almost equal to his walks. But yeah, I mean, am I concerned? Then again, I would say no. I would say no, not yet. I mean, if he has 2 more outings like this, then yes, I'd be concerned. Right now, no.
I want to save Canelo for last because Canelo is the one who I blame for breaking Bobby Miller, because Canelo had already handed the Cy Young to Bobby Miller. And then all of a sudden the baseball gods heard Canelo and said, hold my beer. Canelo, what are you seeing with Bobby Miller? Is it just strictly a command issue? Because it seemed like today those fastballs that ended up being right over the plate, that late break that he usually has on those, it wasn't there today, or they were breaking a little too late and they ended up being right over the plate.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what Carlos said, that first inning in Chicago, he showcased all of his off speed. He showcased the fastball, and he struck out the side. And he struck out the side on 3 separate pitches to finish each of those batters. That first inning looked amazing. And then I mistakenly, jinxed him for these next 2 starts by tweeting saying, I think he's him. Like he may be the most talented guy on the staff, which I think stuff wise is still true. Him and Glasnow are pretty much neck and neck in terms of, their spin rate, stuff plus, and the ability to throw like a 92 mile per hour slider. That's not very common. But I think today's start, it was more of just like the lack of command. He is struggling with the walks. One of the things that he's prone to give up is home runs. Last year he suffered with it. This year he's suffering with the same fate. And that is going to happen. If you're throwing almost 100 miles per hour, if someone barrels you up, they're going to take you deep. And especially if you leave them right down the middle. I don't know if he was missing his locations with the fastball down the pipe, or maybe that was the Dodgers' attack because, Glasnow was pretty aggressive the night before, and he pounded 60 strikes all in the zone. And maybe Bobby Miller maybe they said, all right, well, we kind of got the similar pitch speeds. Let's go with that same game plan. Well, you can't fool major league hitters more than 1 game in a row. So game 2, they probably were ready to attack on those. But I think it's a lot better than that Cubs start because, he did only go 2 innings in that start, and now you're going 4. I hope his next start, which I think will be at home, that'll be better. We'll see what happens there. But I still think there's just some maturity out there. He is still young. He only is in his 2nd year. While he does still show emotion on the mound. Like you can see when the moment kind of like pisses him off a little bit. You could kind of see him getting frustrated with himself. And I think as that's only going to go away as he gets older and he pitches more and more games. Like he still doesn't have 30 career starts yet. And he's still, in my mind, like he's still like a rookie A. Like he's still in that rookie territory. He's still finding his foot. This is his first full season, even though he doesn't have rookie status anymore.
To go back to your comment about Glasnow and Miller in terms of the approach, I think one of the things that happened that I think you got to tip your hat to Glasnow is Glasnow really did a good job of mixing eye level on those Twins because he had some high strikes. He was going to the top of the strike zone. He was going to the bottom of the strike zone. I didn't see that with Miller. Canelo, I want to follow up with you. Actually, before I follow up with you, Canelo, babyface, how concerned are you about Bobby Miller yet?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what you guys hit on. What Cody was saying, we saw this last year with him whenever it seems like he gets in trouble, or he gives up runs, he gets a little bit flustered, and it seems like to carry on in that inning, and it affects him. So I think that's kind of repeating again what we've seen in the Chicago start and then maybe the start. And yeah, just the lack of command. I think he, because once he's dialed in, I mean, we saw that inning. I mean, he was like, it looked like that inning he was unhittable that first inning, right? It looked like this could kind of be a special start. That's kind of how it was going, right? It looked like, man, this guy is untouchable in that first inning, and then it kind of just all the wheels fell off. So I think it's just, he's got to get that command figured out, and then don't let it get in his head when he gets into trouble. But like Carlos said, he's gonna go through the struggles like every pitcher is, obviously. But yeah, not worried yet. Obviously, if it continues a little bit more consistently or in the next couple starts, then yeah, probably something we have to take a look at.
Canelo, I wanted to follow up with you with the bullpen. I know Babyface had said, look, you guys they have Kyle Hurt down in the minors, and everybody was already, shitting on Vesia. Vesia's up there. Chris Taylor and Vesia are competing for the Danny Duffy Award tonight. But look, in all seriousness, I'm confused as to what the Dodgers are doing with the bullpen in the sense of bringing in all these fresh arms. Like Carlos, you mentioned Michael Grove. I mean, I think that was a really big outing for Michael Grove today because his ERA was over 11, and I was really concerned about Michael Grove. And what I thought was this: I scratched my head when they released Dinelson Lamet, only because I felt like Dinelson Lamet was pitching well. His ERA was 2.08. So I thought to myself, why not keep him until the wheels go completely off on him? Send down Michael Grove, let Michael Grove work out whatever issues he was dealing with, and take advantage of Lamet. I mean, maybe you end up fixing Lamet and you can use him. Now, he ended up clearing waivers and he's still in the Dodgers organization. But Canelo, this constant, and then they bring in Connor Brogdon. And I was having a conniption when he gave up those first 2 home runs, going like, what are we doing here? Why are we releasing guys like Chris Matt had one good outing, and the next day it was like, goodbye, sir. Thank you very much. And I get it. These are not guys that I expect them to be on the roster the whole season. But why not take advantage of the fact if they're pitching well now, use them now, and then once the wheels come off, then go ahead and release them.
I think it boils down to, because I kind of wanted the same thing, but then I had to start thinking, I had to put my Andrew Freeman cap on. I think that at the end of the day, they value the options that Michael Grove still has. And they value that, saying, all right, why would we want to waste an option for him? I believe he still has 2 left. So why cook one now when we could still use him as that, long inning relief option to pair with Ryan Yarbrough? I understand, maybe they kind of had a general census. Hey, if we DFA this guy, it seems like he's probably going to clear waivers. It doesn't seem like anyone wants him. And then say if they do, they even released a guy in Matt Gage, which I kind of shook my head at because I was like, wow, we're really short on left-handed relievers in this organization. And then he ended up signing back the very next day. So I feel like they have some preliminary discussions with these guys and saying, hey, thank you for that one start. You're being DFA'd. We hope that you clear. That way we can keep you in the organization. Because then when they clear waivers, they're no longer on the 40-man or anything like that. They don't have options anymore. They just have to purchase their contract the next time they need them. So that's the whole conundrum right now. It's weird that it's happening so early in the season. In my head, I'm like, that's kind of concerning just because you're going through, all right, we're already talking about, hey, we got to spread some of these starters out. Guys, the season just started. You're telling me they're that fatigued right now? And that's why me and Steve Webb have kind of been preaching, when Walker Buehler comes back, why won't they go to a 6-man rotation? They won't outright say it, but they're not letting Yamamoto go in more than, 1 day a week now. They want to push Bobby Miller back. Obviously, they're going to look at Tyler Glass now and his innings. It makes sense all in the world, and then it helps your bullpen as well. And the Dodgers bullpen isn't at full strength right now. They're still missing 2 guys that are on their way back sometime in May, hopefully, and with Bruce Dark-Adderall and Blake Trinan. And adding those guys instantly, makes the bullpen a lot better. And it lets the Dodgers are going to have to make decisions. And I kind of scratched my head at the Connor Brogdon move as well, because I was like, all right, because I know he's definitely probably going to get DFA'd in the next couple of days because I don't really think they're going to fix him. And I'm in the Philly area, and I asked my Phillies fans, I said, hey, what's wrong with this guy? And they said, he is pretty much ass. Like, he is no longer good anymore. He's dropped like 5 miles per hour in his fastball. And once you see that, especially with all the pitching injuries around, that's not some good news there. So I think they'll correct it eventually, but I hate bullpen games. I hate bullpen shifting. It's my least favorite thing about how the Dodgers operate. And someone commented to me on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and they said, well, the Dodgers won the World Series on a bullpen game. And I was like, yes, but I don't want to see bullpen games every single year after that. Don't make that the reason why. That's bad roster construction if you're doing bullpen games.
And Cody, to add what you were saying, also, don't they have the limit on how many times they can send a player down within the years, and like 5 times or something like that?
Yeah,
So,
and then you can't call him back up for 10 days after the call down.
So I think that's why we're going to see some of these guys like these Brogdons, these Lamets, that they can DFA, and if they hope like, hey, we can get them back, then they're back on the roster. But it doesn't really affect them as far as, these other guys with options and how many times they're bringing them up.
Confusing. If I was a player, obviously I would be very fortunate to play for the Dodgers. Like, that's a team, not just saying because I'm a fan, I'm like, oh, I wish I played for the Dodgers, but they're a team that just knows how to win. But Kyle Hurt was listed as the starter the other day in AAA, and you're kind of like putting him in the bullpen, but you're having him start minor league games. Like, that kind of feels weird for his development. It kind of feels like, if I was a player that, like, just a personal player, like, and I want to like try to get better, like, and I don't know what my role is, that is concerning. No matter what player we interview on here, when they're saying, no, I do anything to help the team. No, they want a set role. Like, baseball is very, organized. And I think they're doing some of these players a disservice when they do stuff like that.
I think that's their long-term view of him as well. They want him to be a starter, but when he's up here, he's a reliever. So I don't know how are they just going to keep him down because they don't want to use him in the bullpen?
I don't know. I've seen people say that Kyle Hurt, the way he pitches is more in lines with a reliever, and people around baseball view that the same way. Maybe they're just trying to continue getting him innings and, develop some of his pitches in a starting role in the minor leagues. Because if you even look at the outset for the next couple of years in the rotation, our rotation is pretty full. So he still doesn't have a shot. And it's not like he's like some 20-year-old, pitcher that's on the rise. Like, he's like, I believe, like 24 years old, 25, going into his age 25 season. So, he's getting up there in age as well. It's kind of the conundrum the Dodgers have had with their minor league depth, which I forget who it was on Baseball America. They said the Dodgers, they have a lot of depth, but they don't have like top end talent like they used to before. They just have so much depth to help fill holes when they need it, but they haven't had, a top like 10 or top 5 prospect in a long time.
And then you got Sasaki coming next year, right? Doomsell.
So what you're telling me then is the option that they have on Grove, they're saving it for when Walker Buehler is ready to come in, because that to me is the one that makes sense because you go to that 6-man rotation unless Gavin Stone completely starts falling apart in these next few starts. I think it makes the most sense that once Walker Buehler is ready, you go to that 6-man rotation, right? Carlos, what do you think of a 6-man rotation?
I feel like the Dodgers are just afraid to say, let's do a 6-man rotation. I don't know why, because it makes sense. I mean, instead of having a bullpen game, right? Instead of having it started by Brazier, we could have just said, okay, Grove gets a start. If he does well, you keep him in the second. If he's pitching well, third, fourth, fifth, and you just take him out, just like a regular game. But they're so committed to not saying that, and it's a bullpen game, and they start throwing all these pitchers and stuff. Like Cody, I don't like bullpen games either. It's like it's a crapshoot. And then what you were saying, Juan, about Lamet and Chris Matt, I thought they were doing so great too. I'm like, why would you even isn't the bottom line is about winning? I understand the options. I get it. I get that Grove has options and these younger guys have options, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's about winning the game. And if these guys are pitching well, the first thing you do is like DFA. I mean, I would be upset. And then it's almost like a gamble. They're just okay. Let's just see if you stick around, nobody picks you up, and then you come back to the Dodgers, which they all did. But so the next series against the Padres, a lot of right-handed batters. So I guess one of those guys will come back, either Lamet or Chris Matt, former Padre, will come back and pitch against them. That's my guess. And Brogdon will probably be released, just like you guys said. he'll be DFA'd, and it'll just be consistent to what the Dodgers have been doing all season long. But the 6-man rotation, I think that's the way to go. With most of these pitchers right now have a history of injuries. If you want to diminish their innings pitched early on, 6-man rotation, commit to it. It's no big deal. So what if the league laughs at you or other teams criticize you? Just do it. Just do it. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting because of the fact, I know, again, the slander with Vesia, but Vesia, I don't count Yarborough as the lefty in the bullpen because Yarborough has a very specific role. So really, Vesia is your only lefty in the bullpen. And the issue at hand is, I know you have a couple relievers on this team that are right-handed that can get left-handed hitters out. But 2 of those guys are on the IL right now. Gratterall and Blake Trinan are guys who can get lefties out and pitch well against lefties. It's something to keep an eye on in terms of the thing about the bullpen games that kills me is when they schedule the bullpen games. That's what's frustrating to me, because you had that scheduled bullpen game in the Giants series, and then things went left on you on Friday in Chicago, and now you have a second bullpen game. Like, that's what is like, damn, now we're overworking the bullpen, or we end up having scenarios because we had a bullpen game. Half of these guys are not available for the next day. And that's when you need them, right? In tight situations. I want to segue to, because now we have become the Bleed Lows podcast, Law and Order. We started off the show with the Ippei Mizuhara investigation update, but we got an update on Julio Urias. Was it today, Babyface, or was it yesterday? But it looks like
it was yesterday.
Looks like Julio Urias is getting charged with 5 misdemeanors, 1 count of spousal battery, 2 counts of domestic battery, involving dating relationship, 1 count of false imprisonment, and 1 count of assault. He is scheduled for arraignment on May 2nd. Canelo, your thoughts? It's been a while. This investigation feels like it took forever. Your thoughts on Urias?
I mean, my thoughts, I'm glad that they finally came to a decision. MLB's still investigating him, and everything I've seen is that he says he still wants to play. Doesn't mean it's just in the MLB. I saw that he was interested in maybe going to Japan to join a team there, or the international market. But in terms of Dodgers news, past is the past. He's no longer a part of the organization. So I don't really care anymore. I don't really care about Bauer's whole debacle. I don't care about Julio's whole debacle. I had to deal with the Shohei shit already and hear from all the fans in this area. So I'm focusing on this year and the 26 guys that are in this clubhouse before some of those guys are DFA'd.
Carlos, you have any thoughts, or are you over this Urias story as well?
Yeah, I mean, I felt bad for the guy. He should have thought of the consequences of his actions, and he didn't. I don't see him ever pitching in the MLB again. He's going to be like Bauer, and he'll probably go to Japan, probably Mexican League or something. But yeah, I mean, like Cody says, I mean, I'm only concerned about the active roster and the minor leaguers. And I mean, he's used to be a Dodger. I mean, that's it.
I'm 50-50 if he doesn't play in the league anymore. I think Bauer is the get-go because MLB hates Bauer, but if some team's desperate for pitching and Julio is fully, ready to comply, some team may take a chance on him.
I mean, he's still facing the discipline though from MLB, and as a 2-time offender, I mean, he's gonna get something like
probably like a whole season.
What got handed down to Bauer, a year or 2. So it's gonna be a while if he ever comes back.
Here's the interesting thing about that. So Urias still has not been interviewed, according to the report in the LA Times. He has still not been interviewed by Major League Baseball, and there's a reason for this. Players are advised not to speak to league investigators until the legal process is played out, because anything he says to the league investigators, they can use against him in court. So even though he's going to be arraigned on May 2nd, we still might be months away from Major League Baseball because they haven't even interviewed him yet. The interesting thing to me about this is some of these charges are punishable up to 1 year in county jail. Now, most defense attorneys are convinced that he's not going to end up being in jail, that he is more than likely going to end up paying a fine. But the interesting to what you said, Roger, about this being his second offense, no charges were filed on the first incident that he had. So technically, when he goes to court, they're treating this as a first offense for him. Now, I know Major League Baseball's not going to treat it like that. And to what Canelo said, because that's the next topic, with all these pitching injuries that are going on right now, if for some reason, let's say Urias ends up, which it doesn't look like it, but let's play fantasy world right now. Are major league teams this desperate with the number of injuries that they would consider somebody like Urias or somebody like Bauer? Because, it seems every week there is a new pitcher that all of a sudden his elbow is sore and it's like, dun, dun, dun. Now I got to go visit the doctor in Texas to see what's going on here. Canelo, your thoughts?
I mean, if they're really desperate, I would probably give Trevor Bauer a shot over, Noah Syndergaard, just because, maybe I'm looking for. Bauer said he'll take league minimum, and I still think he would be a decent pitcher, even at his age and years removed from the game, regardless of what you think of the guy. He is a pitching guru. He is very smart in the game of baseball. But are teams ready to deal with the backlash from the league or from other fan bases across the country? No. So that's why he's probably not going to get signed. Julio, he's in his own separate category because, he's kind of still being investigated. So teams don't want to touch that, with an 8-foot stick. So they're going to let that whole thing play out. But I think you are going to start seeing opportunities for some of those free agents that are still out there. Old friend Rich Hill, he said he wants to sign some point mid-season. I did mention Noah Syndergaard out there as well. There's plenty of pitching options in the free agent pool right now. But do teams rather just go with the depth that they already have in their minor league system, or do they give some of these guys major league deals, to eat innings and fill in on the rotation? The way free agency went, I'm assuming they're probably just going to go say, hey, this is what we have to replace it. You guys can still remain free agents. You're asking for too much money.
I know someone in the chat had brought up the name Tony Pham. I totally forgot that Tony Pham still hasn't signed with the team. Now, again, I don't. What's the deal on Taylor's contract? How many more years does Taylor have?
I think it's like 2, right? I think it's an option, and I was assuming they would probably decline it. I think it's a mutual option. I have to pull that up.
Yeah, see, because I keep seeing that name of Tony Pham, and look, guys, it's still April. We're not even to the end of April, and we've seen this. We have proof. We see how all of a sudden things can turn. Like for all the people that are, just slamming Vesia, this is what Vesia did last year, guys. Don't you remember at the beginning of the year he was terrible?
It's a club option.
And then at the end of last year, Vesia turned things around. They were killing his fastball at the beginning of last year. And then I don't know what he did down in the minors, but he fixed something. So there is a possibility that these guys can go ahead and do something like this. So in terms of getting Tommy Pham, I don't know, but it with all these injuries, I think it just serves as a really good reminder that I'm glad that we have enough pitchers that they could go to a 6-man rotation, and that you still have the possibility of more reinforcements to come later on in the year. Emmett Sheehan, we still don't know what's going on with Clayton Kershaw. At this point, if it's a 7-man rotation, whatever will get you through the season. Let's wrap up the show with a preview of the show pods. Babyface's favorite team is coming into Los Angeles. Babyface, I want to start with you. What are you expecting from your favorite team, the show pods?
I mean, they're World Series, right? Obviously, right? Every series against Dodgers is a World Series, but I mean, they just beat the Cubs 2 out of 3. I think they had like one game where they came back from 8-0, and I think today they kind of blew them out. So I was telling this with Cody. I was kind of interesting to see what the Cubs were going to do in San Diego, which obviously not much, and they played really good against the Dodgers right over the weekend. So it is what it is. But same thing. I still think the Padres have a lot of holes there, and I think Dodgers should win 2 out of 3 in this over the weekend.
Canelo, what are you seeing from the show pods?
I think it's so in my preseason predictions, I actually put them as a wild card team. I do like their offense. I think their offense showed that in this series against against the Cubs. They came back from an 8-0 deficit the other day with Tatis hitting that go ahead home run in the 8th inning. I still think they're going to hit pretty well even without Soto. I think their pitching rotation is the biggest weakness for that team, but Dylan Cease did provide some stability. But in terms of this weekend matchup, ESPN has it as Yamamoto, Stone, and Paxton. I don't know if they're going to throw a bullpen game in there. Can never see pitching probables for the Dodgers ever working out. And the Padres are sending out Michael King, Waldron, and then Yu Darvish, who usually pitches well against the Dodgers. So I'll be optimist, and I'll say at least 2 out of 3. Dodgers play really well at home. And, it's the Padres coming to town. I forget who had it ranked. I think it was either ESPN or MLB Network. They were saying it's a top 5 rivalry in today's game. And I laughed at that a little bit just because I don't know why we're still pushing that anymore. But I still think it'll be a good series, but I hope 2 out of 3. But I could see a sweep just from, I like Paxton. I like what he's been doing, even though, his velocity's been down. He still commands the zone pretty well, minus the 4 walks that he gave up against the Giants. Gavin Stone, I still think looks really good. If his changeup is working early, I think he's going to settle into the game and go at least 5 innings. And Yamamoto, I think we're moving past that Korea start. He showed a lot of, grit to get out of back-to-back bases loaded jams in the first 2 innings against the Cubs, and to go at least 5 solid innings. I think if he can get his footing in, similar to with that start with the Cardinals, he could probably be a guy that can go 6 or 7 innings any given day. So it could be a sweep.
Carlos, how many games are you going to this weekend?
Just the one. Just Saturday for the Gradwell bobblehead.
All right. So what are you expecting to see from the show pods, Carlos?
A lot of runs. I mean, they can hit, and they hit Dodgers pitching well. So the Dodgers got to put up some runs in order for us to get at least 2 out of 3. But yeah, it's going to be I think it's going to be a slugfest this weekend. They scored 20 runs against the Cubs, and 19 of them came in 2 games. So, we need to definitely study those. The pitchers need to study like the game plan with them and how they're going to approach them. But we got to put some runs up.
So the show pods come in with a record of 7-8. They're in second place. They're 3 games back from the Dodgers. And everybody here on the show today has been talking about the show pods offense. So the show pods come in right now in the all of Major League Baseball, 2nd in home runs and 3rd in runs. The team that is ahead of them in both of those categories are the Los Angeles Dodgers. It seems like the issue for the show pods has been their pitching. They're 22nd currently in Major League Baseball. Now, if it goes as planned, it looks like the Dodgers are going to see Darvish. And Darvish pitched well against them in Korea, but they made Darvish work, and they were able to get him out of the game early. So I hope to see that same strategy there. We're going to see Michael King on Friday, according to Pan. So I'm curious to see what he looks like. That Jackson Merrill kid is hitting 300 right now. So I'm curious to see if he's able to keep it up this season. But 2 big names for the show pods are struggling. So the show pods are doing this offensively with Manny Machado hitting 204 and Xander Bogaerts hitting 250. If those guys start hitting, that show pod's offense could look really, really scary. And I really hope they don't choose this weekend to start playing well. I keep seeing this question up in the chat, so let's go ahead and deal with it. Canelo, everybody in the chat here wants to see Andy Pages up here. What are your thoughts on Andy Pages? When are we going to see Andy Pages?
We talked about it last week on the live with MLB.com beat writer for the Dodgers, Juan Toribio. Basically, he's coming. He's just not coming now. He only has under 20 at-bats in the AAA level. He missed all of last season with a torn labrum. He looks phenomenal in AAA right now. He looks completely healthy. His bat-to-ball skills look outmatched. Honestly, if you called him up right now to replace any of the outfielders that are hitting under 100, he would probably do well. but the Dodgers are going to take their time like they do with everything. I already made the prediction that he will be making his debut sometime before the All-Star break, and that he would probably be starting postseason games in either left field, center field, right field. Pick him, put him anywhere, or he'll platoon with somebody. But he'll be here eventually, just not anytime soon.
Carlos, your thoughts on Andy Pages?
I mean, if it was up to me, I'd bring him up. But realistically, who you would have to cut a player. I mean, who do you can't? I don't even know I don't know if anybody has options to be sent down. You would literally have to trade, like, I guess it would be Hernandez. I mean, who's going to want Hernandez right now in the trade, or Taylor? So realistically, I don't see it happening. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I just don't see how you replace somebody with him, or how you send someone down to the minor leagues. It doesn't add up.
Babyface, are you on the Andy Pages train?
Yeah, I'm excited to see him, but I don't think, like I said, I don't think he'll be up anytime soon unless this Jason Hayward injury lingers and then they release like Taylor Trammell. They could do that. They could go that route. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure glad they kept him, right? I mean, do you guys remember he was the guy that was going to the Angels, part of the trade with the Angels was the Ross Stripling and Jock Peterson trade, and then Artie Moreno X that trade, if you remember a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So good thing that thing fell apart, because Andy Pages could be, future big star in LA.
Look, guys, I think we have to heed Canelo's words on here. And every time we say, hey, let's get rid of this guy, let's do this, we always have to try to think the way that Andrew Friedman thinks. So, yes, Andy Pages is coming, but keep this in mind. As Babyface just brought up, the Dodgers picked up Taylor Trammell before bringing up Andy Pages. What is it that Taylor Trammell could offer? Because the guy was hitting under 200 in 3 seasons here. It's that Taylor Trammell is left-handed. The Dodgers are committed to having options, this righty-lefty thing. And I think the thing that hurts Andy Pages the most is that he's right-handed. Now, if Kike or Chris Taylor go down, in particular if Chris Taylor goes down with some phantom injury, then I could go ahead and maybe see Andy Pages, but I think you guys are forgetting somebody down there. And I know that Doom Sal's on the chat, so he might be able to back me up right now. But there's a certain guy named Miguel Vargas that everybody has seemed to have forgotten. And Doom Sal, correct me or keep me honest here. From what I'm hearing or seeing, it looks like he's raking down there in Oklahoma City. So I know some of the beat writers have said this, that there's a better chance of seeing Miguel Vargas back up at the major league level than Andy Pages. Anybody want to chime in on that before we end the show?
I mean, I would agree with it. It seems like it all goes with Pages and saying, all right, how many at-bats has he had in the minor leagues? Like, I think we have to realize he did miss an entire season with a torn labrum injury. And like, that's a huge injury that you would want to recover from. And if Vargas, while it wasn't good, he already has major league experience. They already have shifted him around. He has experience at third base, second base, left field now. That's more than what Andy Pages would offer if he joined the big league club. And the thing the Dodgers value a lot more than just the platooning aspect of the game is versatility. And the fact that Vargas can play infield, outfield at an average or a little bit below average level, it makes him a little bit more valuable. In terms of my personal prospect rankings, I already told Roger this off air. I think Pages just pretty much overleaped him in terms of my excitement for the player, which I just feel like he has more of an upside hitting wise than Vargas ever will, because it just seems like Vargas won't show it at the major league level yet. And Pages hasn't either, because we've only seen him in spring training this past year, but that's just my personal take on it. But I think you would see Vargas first.
Carlos, any thoughts on Miguel Vargas, the forgotten man in the Dodgers organization?
I mean, I think what you guys said, if someone gets hurt, that's the only someone that's going to come up. Right now, I just don't see how they're going to move players around to make a spot for Vargas. It's going to have to be an injury or something like that. That's it. So, yeah, no, if he comes up, I think he has some options where he can play infield and outfield, so that's good. But he's also a right-handed bat, like you had mentioned about, we need some lefty batters. I mean, we're lefty heavy, aren't we? Yeah, we're pretty.
We are, but the Dodgers love to do the all right-handed lineup and then the all left-handed lineup. Babyface, have you given up on Vargas?
I mean, he's hitting 300. He has 3 home runs, for like 15 RBIs in OKC. I mean, I brought this up with Tariba last week. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with him. I mean, eventually, I think they're going to have to move on from him, especially if he comes up again and he shows that he really can't get it going up here in with the big club. Because I mean, he can't stay in AAA forever, right? I mean, he's becoming, like Michael Bush. I mean, that's the only place they could have him, and he pretty much tears it up there. So eventually, I think they're going to have to do something. And if he's not up, I'd rather see them move him.
Okay, so before we say goodbye, Denny Cortez brought up WrestleMania, and Denny, I think Babyface and I are the only ones that care about WrestleMania, because I know Canelo is above it, and he just does not partake in the male soap opera. Carlos, I don't know if we've gotten your stance yet. Are you a wrestling guy, or do you go to the golf club with Canelo and just poo-poo the rest of us ham and eggers?
Yeah, I don't hang out with the ham and eggers, man. Sorry.
All right.
No.
Well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I mentioned to you guys a long time ago, when I was a kid, I used to watch it back in the good old days, man. But nah, not anymore.
I mean, a lot of people will say that these are becoming the good old days again. I mean, there's been an explosion, I guess, with WWE, like especially with The Rock coming back. He was there for a couple months, and it looks like they're doing really good numbers again, like they did back in their heyday, back in late 90s, early 2000s. So we'll see. It's getting pretty popular. I mean, I did catch WrestleMania. I had to see that, the Rock match and the Cody Rhodes match. And I saw somebody in the chat said it's fake. Do you watch movies? Do you watch movies and TV shows?
Wow, why are you taking this personal, man? It's entertainment. Even though I heard the rumor is they're going to try to go away from sports entertainment. They're not going to use that anymore. Denny, here is my review of WrestleMania, and it's really basically on the main event. There was a lot of fan service. The one thing I didn't like, the too many run-ins at the end. I could have done without John Cena in there. I think the Seth Rollins was the only thing that made sense. Bringing the Undertaker. I just wish, look, it's the main event. Let Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns have their moment. Like, I am a man of the golden era. To me, the golden era was the best. When did we ever see main events end in with run-ins in the golden era, babyface? Like when Savage was carrying Hogan's ass in WrestleMania 5, or Warrior versus Hogan, or Hogan and Andre. Do you think they were going to let somebody run in on Hogan and Andre? That's just my take on it. To happy birthday once again to Mr. Raider, the Ghost of Al Davis. This is for your birthday, my friend. I will say this: I am the tower of power, too sweet to be sour, funky like a monkey, and space is the place. In terms of the Danny Duffy Award winner tonight, guys, I don't know who to give it to. So you guys chime in. There was a lot of Chris Taylor hate. Chris Taylor got a lot of strays, and Alex Vesia got a lot of strays. So
I saw a lot of Barnes, but I don't know why, because Barnes, it's a limited sample size, but he's hitting 333. So I don't know why the hate on Barnes so early. I mean, I think even with runners in scoring position, he's hitting like 300 or 400, something like that. So it's early, but Barnes is doing a lot better than last season. I don't think he even had a hit in his first 9 at-bats last season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I will not allow Austin Barnes to win the Danny Duffy Award tonight. So let's go to the panel, guys. Who gets the Danny Duffy Award? Is it Chris Taylor or is it Alex Vesia?
I go with Taylor. I think Taylor's doing an imitation of Barnes from last season so I go with Taylor.
Canelo?
I'll probably go with Taylor too. I mean, I know Vesia, is the home run derby guy now. He's throwing the BP out there, but watching Taylor just kind of waltz up there, and it's like I'm thinking of one thing only, and I'm like, all right, who's after Taylor? Because I know he's going to strike out. So I know. I hope he figures it out, because I do love Chris Taylor, but I don't know. He just looks entirely lost right now. So you may see a phantom IL stint in his near future.
Babyface, do you have any say before we sign off?
Yeah, you can go with Taylor.
All right. I did like giving Ippei. We got 2 votes for Ippei getting the Danny Duffy Award. So maybe we'll wait until Ippei is convicted before we give him the Danny Duffy Award. So I think for tonight, we will go with Chris Taylor. Congratulations, Chris Taylor. You are the winner of the Danny Duffy Award on tonight's broadcast of the Bleed Lows podcast. So once again, guys, if you haven't already, I'm assuming you guys are all on here, but please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast and to our YouTube channel. Hit the notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Spread the word about the Bleed Lows podcast. Make sure you guys are joining us every week on the lives, and then watch all the content that we have on the YouTube channel. I know that Mike Salas has been out there covering the Quakes, the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes, and then Babyface, you went down there and like interviewed the whole team, right?
I talked to a couple guys. I wanted to talk to the guys that we've been hearing a lot about, right? The Josue, the Paula, and who else did I talk to? Zaire Hope, Kendall George, kind of those guys that kind of the big. There's been already some buzz with those guys, so I kind of wanted to get a feel for those guys. And all those guys, they're so young. They're like 19, 20 years old, but they already got they got a good head on their shoulders. So it's going to be interesting to see those guys, how they develop with the Quakes and continue to move through the system.
Yeah, so you can watch all that content on the Bleed Lows podcast YouTube channel, guys. So for Canelo, Carlos, and Babyface, yo ha sido su servidor, Juan Ramírez. Los vemos para la próxima. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast has been brought to you by BetOnline, where the game starts. Nos vemos, everybody.